A very famous Austrian psychiatrist, during the time he was Jewish, during the time of World War II, was captured by the Nazis and thrown into the worst of the worst concentration camps, where all the, what do they call, ovens for killing Jews were kept. They went through the worst of the worst conditions of living. They were humiliated, their spirit was broken. They became zombies, robot-like. No purpose of living, no interest in living. A few of them, one of them being Viktor Frankl, discovered a way of keeping his spirit alive. He started writing a book. On every piece of paper, from toilet paper to everything else that he could get, he started writing a book. Do you know what the book's title was finally when it was published? It was Man's Search for Meaning. The purpose of life is simply, according to my limited understanding, a search for meaning. To find more and more meaningfulness for yourself is what your life is really all about. So some people think they can find meaningfulness by becoming chartered accountants. Good luck to them. I couldn't find any meaningfulness in that. Some people found meaningfulness in becoming photographers, sound designers, artists, architects, terrorists. We are searching for meaning. So the purpose of life is to find the purpose of life. And I'm not saying this to avoid the question or to give you an abstract answer. Think about those words deeply. The search for meaningfulness itself is the purpose of your life. In fact, if there is such a thing as God, and I don't necessarily believe and subscribe to a religious God, but for those of us who have different religious inclinations, we like to believe in God and worship God in different ways. Rituals, prayers, rites, ceremonies. Wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. But I sometimes sit quietly and imagine, what is it that God really would like us to be doing? Performing rites and rites and rituals and saying prayers to Him? Or would He simply like us to keep searching for more and more, greater and greater, wider and wider meaningfulness? How far can you go in your meaningfulness search? Is it finite? Is meaningfulness ultimately finite? Or is it infinite? Well, if you believe in infinity, do you believe that infiniteness exists? Forget God for the moment. Does infinity exist? And how would you know infinity if you had no knowledge of what was finite? Well, maybe that's what God created the finite for, in order to know Himself as the infinite. So maybe our meaningfulness search can be infinite. Maybe our potential is infinite. Maybe we all have within us the God potential, an infinite potential to discover greater and greater dimensions, boundaries, realms of amazing meaningfulness. And maybe that's our purpose of life. And maybe that's what satisfies God much more than any prayers or any other forms of worship. Learning to become more and more meaningful until we become one with Him and with everyone. And what's wrong with that? So all this great philosophical fundabaji for a simple Parsi boy who was average in studies can sometimes get too much. So how do I define God? Very simply. I don't look upon trying to define the infinite. How can I, the finite, ever define that which is infinite? It's far beyond my scope. And how arrogant would it be to assume that I can go beyond my scope? Instead of that, let's make it simple, Dimple. Okay? Everything I know plus everything I don't know, for me, is the way I define God. Everything I know plus everything I don't know. Look at science. Scientific discoveries haven't stopped. They're full-fledged going ahead because there's so much they don't know. There's so much we don't know. Why not just simply acknowledge that you don't know everything and then add up what you know with a variable x, if you like, algebraic variable, which denotes everything you don't know, equals God. Simple. So even as an atheist, you cannot deny that, or agnostic, you cannot deny that. You don't need to have this great figure in the clouds and then debate till you're red in the face about whether it's a he or a she. You don't need that. Whether it's Allah or Zarathustra or Ahura Mazda or Jesus or God or Allah or whoever else. We don't need to go into that. God is simply everything you know plus everything you don't know. So our purpose of life is our journey. To take that journey beyond our existing limited finiteness and reach out and explore and experience a greater consciousness that exists, and to keep on doing that. And that's our potential.